Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the world's greatest football store. My name is Noah Kavanaugh, and this is perhaps the most exciting release of 2025 so far. This is the Innovation Pack from Mizuno. Let's jump into it. So really the Innovation Pack is all about Mizuno flexing its creativity and its production muscles. Now, we have two really incredible boots across on my left-hand side, and then two versions of the Morelia II, which I want to get to as well. All feature something slightly different, and in this case, radically different from the normal retail models. Of course, we will hold these ones and the regular retail models in store at Ultra Football. So starting off on the right-hand side with the Morelia models. Now we have a really interesting Wagyu leather upper on this Morelia II. Essentially the exact same construction as a normal Morelia II, except obviously K-leather instead of the Wagyu leather. And the Wagyu leather is basically a calf hide or cow hide that's made in Japan or raised in Japan. This is an incredibly soft leather upper. It feels slightly more padded than the K-leather counterpart, and then you do get the same conical stud pattern, very classic, very Mizuno, with the rivets here in the forefoot and in the rear to help with that durability. A really nice and secure heel area, and of course a nice and padded tongue as well. Overall, an incredible product. I'm really impressed how they've gotten this cowhide leather to be so soft and supple. So then moving on to the Morelia Prototype. Now this boot is incredibly interesting to me because it has a lot of different DNA from different Mizuno models. This actually comes in an AG sole plate, which is Mizuno's very typical AG sole plate. Very nice for AG and actually some firm ground pitches as well. You get this really cool Morelia logo here in the heel, the Running Bird logo of course, and then an all K leather upper that features some interesting stitching patterns that you can find here in the Neo Beta series, the cross stitch or the M8 model, which is a Japan exclusive Morelia II, and an off-center lacing system very similar to the Rebula Cup, which sold several years ago. There were three different versions. Honda was one of the players that wore that Rebula Cup, probably the most famously at least, and a really interesting pair of football boots, unbelievably soft K-leather upper, and a really interesting pair of football boots as well. Now moving on to the Morelia Neo IV Beta and the Mizuno Alpha II. Now what's interesting is you might look at these from this angle and be like, Noah, what's different about them? Well, if you turn them over, they've actually just swapped the sole plates from the two models. So starting with the Morelia Neo IV Beta, which I think is probably one of the most exciting boots out of this entire pack. Morelia Neo IV Beta has a very plush feel while also giving a really nice wrapped and locked in sensation in that midfoot area with this knit midfoot. It's a lot more streamlined than a lot of people might think. It's got a really nice suede heel liner, and for the normal model that's got the conical studs or the sole plate on this Alpha II, it's relatively snappy, it's got nice amount of pivot power, but I don't think it puts it in the category of hardcore speed boot. Whereas now we have the Alpha sole plate, the Carvo midsole, which makes for an incredibly snappy and aggressive outsole on an already very accomplished and comfortable leather four-footed football boot. All right, finally moving on to the Alpha II, which in my opinion is kind of the best of all the worlds. This is one of those boots that I really enjoy the normal edition of, but I tend to prefer something a little bit more conical in terms of stud pattern, and they've slapped on one of the best conical stud patterns on the market, which is pretty amazing. You've got the incredible upper from the Alpha II with that 5-layer synthetic upper. You've got an entire zero glide layer on the inside, which means your feet are not gonna slip at all inside the boots. Of course, a little runner's knot on the side. And then, of course, they've put the Morelia Neo IV sole plate on there, which is going to give you a great amount of snapback and rigidity through that midfoot, lots of push-off power, but maybe a little bit less aggressive than the normal Alpha II sole plate, which is something that I really like. Weight is also something that is super impressive across all of these lines. Both the Morelia derivatives come in right around that 210 gram mark for a size 9 US. The Morelia Neo IV with the new sole plate comes in right around that 200 gram mark, so pretty lightweight, but also not maybe speed boot like yet. And the Alpha 2 with the updated sole plate or the swapped sole plate comes in at 190 grams. So very, very similar. And for me, incredibly impressive to get such a sort of classic football boot, if you will, as light as they did here. In terms of colorway, I'm actually really excited that they went with an all black look. Number one, looks super stealthy, absolutely blacked out. You can kind of tell what they are, kind of not from a distance. But I think more than that, it speaks to sort of the prototypeness of each of these models. Obviously, every single one of these models has something different to it that maybe when you look at it on pitch, you might not be able to tell until the player lifts their foot up and you can see what's underneath. Or in the case of this Morelia II, most people aren't going to actually know that this is the Morelia II Japan version versus the K-leather version. And so it's really interesting that they've gone with an all black look. I absolutely love it. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think of these different models in this colorway. So now that we're out on pitch, expect the fit and sizing to be identical to the Norma Alpha or Morelia II. Obviously, it's built on the same last, which is the engineered Fit Last Neo. So regardless of whether you have the Alpha or the Morelia Neo IV Beta, expect this pair and the Morelia Neo IV to fit the exact same in terms of sizing, just like the normal edition. And in terms of fit and feel on feet, they feel very, very similar to the Alphas, but with a little bit more gentleness, shall we say, underfoot. You get a much more ergonomic shape, in my opinion, with this Morelia Neo IV sole plate, and that in combination with this unbelievably thin and soft synthetic upper creates one of the most enjoyable playing experiences on the market. One of the most impressive pieces of the Mizuno Alpha in general is the Zero Glide tech that occupies the entirety of the inside of the football boot. So it's basically all of the contact points with your socks and your feet. It creates this unbelievable locking sensation around your foot. So no matter whether you're wearing grip socks or non-grip socks, you are going to stay planted on that sole plate inside the boots. What I think is really unique and special about this particular pair and why I wanted to take this one out on pitch is because it really makes for one of the most beautiful sole plate experiences as something that's got conical studs. So it's actually going to be decent for AG pitches as well as FG, and it's got the super thin Alpha 2 upper. So the combination of this really locked-in sensation with a very neutral and very grounded sole plate makes for one of the most enjoyable playing experiences for what I'm looking for. You can expect a lot of snapback from the sole plate as well as a wonderful striking surface. This Alpha 2 synthetic is really close to the ball, and although it's not going to be as grippy as maybe the normal regular colorways because of this matte black finish, you're still going to get a decent amount of grippy sensation on the ball for those bended and curled shots. These are basically near perfect in terms of any performance indicator. You have a thin upper, really nice and aggressive sole plate that's also not too aggressive, and lockdown in this boot that is second to none, basically. I'm curious to know though, do you guys prefer this model or do you prefer the swapped model with the Alpha sole plate and the Morelia Neo IV Beta sole plate? All right guys, that is going to be it for the Innovation Pack from Mizuno. I absolutely love this pack. I think the colorway is awesome, and just the concept behind taking all of their top end, already popular models, shifting things around a bit, making them a little bit more unique and experimenting a little bit is such a cool idea. I hope we see more things like this from Mizuno in the future. I am absolutely stoked. Make sure you head over to our Instagram at UltraFootball and you can get live details about where and when to pick these up, both in store and online. My name is Noah Kavanaugh, and I'll see you guys next time at the world's greatest football store.